Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub here today with Pastor Jim from Bergstrasse. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today.
Good.
I'm sitting here in Ephrata. It's a Tuesday morning. The sun is out. I can feel the heat coming in from the windows. It's a glorious day.
It is a glorious day. It is. It is. So,
Besides
okay.
that, I'm actually doing well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good. Good. I'm glad. Um, so once again, everyone can say this with me. We were chatting before this, and we're going to talk about some interesting stuff, I think, today. So for those of you who are not Lutheran, and it doesn't make a difference at all if you are or you're not, but this weekend is Reformation Sunday. And so you're like,
Last Sunday.
oh, last week. And so what that means is that was the anniversary of Martin Luther tacking up the 95, 99, a large number, 95, right? In my head it was 95. Theses up on the church door that said, this is why we should be separate from you, because here are the 95 things I think that you've done wrong. And we're not talking about any of the religious part of this because that's not really what it's about. We were talking about being a change maker. And it happens to be, Martin Luther is certainly a change maker. So, and whatever a change maker means to you, and that's just what we were talking about, and it's just fascinating. So you talk about that, and we'll just talk about stuff because.
So yeah, and I think oftentimes we become change makers and we don't realize that we are a change maker in some of the actions that we do. We only discover later on that we made a difference, or we made someone change their attitude, or we encouraged someone to change their attitude, and they did. And the 95 Theses that Luther posted is not to necessarily say that they were wrong, but to say, I'm having some difficulty with some of these.
Yeah.
Some of the things we do, and let's change them around. And as we talked about earlier, the thing with Martin Luther kind of like being the kingpin, and even though he was not the only reformer,
Absolutely.
he was not the only reformer.
Right.
There were many other ones.
Right, John Calvin, Wesley, all those guys, yeah.
They were all part of it. It's just that we all go to that big thing that Luther posted those theses on the door and call him the major reformer. But Luther was just a regular, ordinary guy.
Yeah, like historically, he was a guy you would pretty literally have beers with, as that old
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He would walk down the streets of Wittenberg where he was the professor, where he was, working in the church as well as in academia, in the seminary and teaching stuff. It was nothing for him to have a beer with his buds, and they would sit there, and what happens when you start talking about stuff around the bar? It really gets real. Conversations really get real, and you're really just kind of like, whatever.
Right.
And I could imagine that some of that language in the bar was not very saintly.
Yeah, but it's also that moment when you're with your pals and you're being social, and you're like, well, what about that? Why can't we do something about that?
Why can't we do something about it?
You're a guy, I'm a guy, we can talk about stuff. Why can't we do stuff?
And why can't the 2 or 3 of us or 20 of us kind of, get our heads together and think about how we might do things differently? And Luther took the bull by the horns, so to speak, and made some significant changes that really affects us even today.
Well, it is fascinating because we were talking about that, even though some of this stuff, one of the biggest changes that he made was that he translated the Bible into German. And so people are like, yeah, who gives a damn? Like, why does that even matter? Because the Bible was in Latin, only for educated people.
And you know what? if you and I would have been regular citizens in the 16th century in Wittenberg, we probably would not have been able to read the Bible.
Right.
We may not have been taught that.
Right.
But he took the time to translate it and then taught the people how to read it so that it wasn't some kind of obscure words that the priest or another educated person was talking about. And they're like, huh? But he
Right.
actually talked to them about it.
And like the church at that time, that was radical. That religious stuff would be accessible by regular folk. And so it's also like it's 500 years ago. So I think about like, there are things now that people have access to that other people in other levels would have been like, you shouldn't have access to that. That's reserved for people who are up here. It's fascinating to me.
But that's also kind of like what's going on in our world today too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just different things. It's not necessarily about faith and religion, but
Right.
The church reformers of the 16th century were very key in just changing how the world operated. And Luther and his pals was someone who just said, we got to get to the people. We got to get to the people. They have brains, they can think. Yes, we need to accompany them. We need to abide with them. And we can help them along that. I mean, here we are as educated, people, we can show them what it means. So for Luther to translate the scriptures and for people to have it, it's like, whoa. Now they could start thinking.
Right. And if you have everybody thinking, what does that mean? What kind of change could be brought on? For good or for bad, this is not a judgment about this is about like, now there are a gajillion possibilities of what could be. And before, the world was a lot narrower. And so when you explode it like that.
And who knows, as you said, who knows? And it's only the change that can happen happens by the minds of the people that gather around the table, the people that gather around for those
right
at the pub to talk, where are the gathering spaces that people really wrestle with the questions of life and the questions of what's going on. And to be able to do that in a way that is non-judgmental.
Yeah. Right, because if you're gonna make, and it's one of those things, if you're gonna make change, you can't be like, it's because I hate, right? And even though that some people might say that about what Martin Luther did, his point was, I mean, because you could read it with that bent if you wanted. I hated this, I hated this, I hated this, I hated this, but his then thing was, whatever happens after this will not be this. It will be different. He didn't just give you sass and then let it lie there. He said, now I'm going to do things that are differently because of that.
So something as I just heard you say that, Kelly, there was something that came to my mind that I'm not sure when I learned this, but I have to admit it wasn't too long ago. It was maybe within the last 10 years or so. But we are so accustomed to making change by saying, you're wrong.
Right.
Change happens best, and effective change happens when I say or you say what you really believe, and you center it and you focus it. And say it in a way that I believe that we ought to look at things this way, and not say because that's wrong, but let's shift that around. And that was honestly a lot of the stuff that Luther was actually saying to the church. He was saying, Luther never wanted to start a new church.
Right. He wanted to change the church that existed because that was what he did. That was his profession. And when he posted those, his intent was to say, look, we've chatted about this a lot. We're not really getting to a place, so I need to be more bold in my approach.
Be bold. That was Luther. Be bold. Stand up for what you believe. But stand up for what you believe as a way of making change, not of a forceful change, not of a takeover, not of a,
Right.
He engaged with the priests. It wasn't it wasn't the best. He engaged with the Pope. I mean, but he didn't get anywhere with it.
Right.
But he took it to the people.
It's interesting when this is a conversation about Martin Luther, but in my head, this is also a conversation about everybody else that you choose who is your change agent. I mean, you could talk about Gandhi in this situation. You could talk about John Lewis from Georgia in this situation. You could talk about, we could talk about one of my heroes, Lech Walesa, the whole solidarity movement in Poland. I mean, they all have those similarities about what you do and how you make that change.
And to make effective change, you bring people together.
Right, because if you're doing it by yourself, that's like a coup, and that's a very different situation. I mean, sometimes, I think, if you're being real thoughtful, there are people who have been on the same path of all of these other people that said, this is the only way that I can make change, and have chosen that another method. But this is not about judgment here. This is about, that was the method they chose. We might not agree with what the method was, but that was what they chose. But it's interesting to talk about that. I mean, there were a lot of people when Gandhi was started who said, he is a terrorist. He is ruining our country because of the way he is teaching people and how he is making them, what he is making them believe. He's ruining the Indian culture because he is so radical.
Yeah. And the
I don't
thing
know.
is, change happens around us all the time, every moment.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment at varying levels, obviously, but we can choose to be a part of it, which is what I strongly recommend. And everyone can choose again,
Right,
how much they want to be a part of that change. Do I want to be just this much? Do I want to be in the periphery? Or do I want to get into the middle? And sometimes getting into the middle takes a whole lot more courage, because it means that you're putting yourself on the line. But when you get to the middle, and you're alone, you better turn around and back out again.
right.
But when you go in together, and you can say, this is what we believe. This is what we believe. Here is where I stand. Here is where we stand. That's when you can make effective change, and the people can see that you've given it thought, that you've thought it through from both sides. You've thought all of the different options, and whatever, but this is the best. Is it going to make everybody happy? No, but it might.
Right, and
In days, weeks,
and
months,
as we always talk about these things, we're not saying that, this is about, we have to be as radical, if you think so, as Martin Luther. This could be, you've always wanted to have, I don't know, you've always wanted to start a club for beekeepers. And you really think that pollen hive degradation disease, whatever that's called, I forgot the name of it, is killing our universe, and you want to create a beekeeping group because that's going to save stuff. I don't want people to think we're just talking about politics. This could be about whatever you want.
We're not talking about church either.
Right. 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 It's just an example that happened to be timely in your life. And I was thinking about it too. I was like, oh, Martin Luther. Haven't thought about him in a bit.
No, and the thing is, Kelly, who knows? 500 years from now,
Right.
people might be reaching out and finding these tapes and saying, what were they thinking? It was so radical. The two people would just get together and just have no idea about and come across and make a difference. It's like, just saying, Kelly.
Right.
Just saying.
I mean, it's right. I mean, it's hilarious because, as a former teacher, we would talk about the Reformation movement, and it starts with it and how it blossomed and became a real movement over time. And right, who knows? Who knows when that next is this part of reform, part of change.
Yeah. It starts with an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
It starts with an idea. And an idea that can grow in ways that are positive, that it gets nurtured with the diversity of any number of people. It gets nurtured by the diversity of experiences. Yeah.
Who knows? This could be your Reformation Sunday. Who knows? Could be. I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
Pastor Jim, as always, it's super fun to be able to walk down this really cool path with you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.